To support Three Beards Media, and I would love to work with you. If you need merchandise for your company, organization, band, softball team, whatever, I can help. From name brand apparel to promotional items, large orders or small, online stores and more, I can help your brand stand out. AKC Marketing is local, based in Johnston, and we are an employee-owned business, so our costs are low and our turnaround times are fast. But most importantly, we give you personal service to make sure you get exactly what you're looking for. Email me at andrew@akcmarketing.com or find me on social media, and let's make some cool stuff together. Now sit back and enjoy this Three Beards Media podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of False Starts with Bill Blank and Chris Shipley. I am the host, Chris. My co-host, Bill Blank, broadcasting live from Andrew Downs, AKC Marketing Studios, and sponsored by our guys at Revelton Distilling Company. What is going on with you tonight, Bill?
Not a lot at the moment. I'm using my mouse arrow to fuck with your face. It's kind of fun. You can't even see me doing it, like sticking it up your nose and shit.
My nose too.
Everything's going pretty well. The last couple of weeks have ran rather smoothly. I don't have much. It got rear-ended the other day, and that was
no shit.
That sucked. Yeah, it was just hard. The guy, he couldn't really speak English well, so it was very hard. He thought he wanted to just let it go, you know.
Of course he did.
Yeah, and there's not that much damage, but enough that I don't want to pay for it. I want the paint, paint's messed up. You can see where the screws on his license plate went into my bumper or whatever.
Yeah.
So I want that shit fixed. I'm not gonna pay for it myself just because I feel sorry for you, you know.
Right.
But it was just he kept good, yeah, good, and I'm like, no, bro, you're paying for that. I'm trying to. He doesn't speak English that well. I think he was Filipino. I think, because he looked like Manny Pacquiao. So I'm almost positive. Yeah. I grew up with a lot of half Filipino kids, you know. So and when he would talk on the phone, I don't know, the language just sounded. I think anyway. So I couldn't. I was trying to communicate to get him to go over to this parking lot. Well, right about then the cops roll up.
Yeah.
Go over there, and he's throwing a fit the whole time. I don't know what he's saying, but I can tell he's not. He thinks I'm being a dick. You know, he's
because he wouldn't let you leave.
You know, he's on the phone, and he's pointing at the car. He went up to the car. He's taking pictures. A couple times, I finally got out. I was like, dude, get away from my car. You taking enough pictures. And so yeah, that was a thing. Wasn't a big deal, but other than that,
I had therapy on Monday of last week, and it's kind of different to go in there when you don't really have a lot of shit to unburden. You know what I mean? And we had
sometimes
a nice conversation.
That's when they dig at you. It's almost sometimes I think that's why people stop going when they feel good. Because sometimes when you go in there and you feel good, it's almost like they're trying to make you feel shitty to make sure you come back.
Well, he at the end of it, we had kind of decided at that point it was just going to be on an on-needed basis. He felt like I didn't need to come back regularly, but anytime I felt like I needed to revisit or whatever, we could just make those ad hoc those meetings. So that was kind of nice. I guess it kind of went against what we've been preaching here, that eventually you can just stop and you're cured. That's kind of the impression I got, but definitely am not cured. And on top of it, I appeared on another podcast last week called Dranks and Things, and it was all about men's mental health. So
really,
they were doing some mental health podcasts for the month of June for
Gotcha.
Mental Health Awareness Month. So yeah, so it was a kind of a busy mental health week for me. So And I yelled at somebody that didn't speak English as well, so it worked. So the customer service call, I finally told the lady, "Don't transfer me, and if you do, I just prefer to talk to somebody that can speak English."
Oh no!
Because it was like the fourth person I had talked to, and it was just a freaking nightmare. But
yeah, see, you sound way more racist than me though when you say it.
I'm not gonna lie. I went in the hallway of work and told everybody, "I'm sorry, but I was at my wit's end at the end of that call."
Yeah.
Like, listen, that's not racist. That's just annoying.
No, it was more. No, it was more. I get it. You were basically if that were an English speaking person and they still were dumb about whatever you were trying to get them to do, then you would probably still be like, "Do you understand English?" Or
right.
something,
I'd be like,
maybe,
yeah.
you know.
I believe I got tired of having to say every time they said something, me go, "I'm sorry, I didn't understand a word of what you just said."
Yeah.
So, and it was the fourth person I had talked to. So, you know what I mean?
No, I get it.
So,
I get it. We can rationalize your racism
right.
for another half hour if you want
listen,
to.
I once told a white person on a support call, stop talking for 5 minutes and just shut up so I can tell you how to fix the problem. And that was a white person. So, although it was also a woman, so maybe.
Yeah, but you didn't accuse them of not being able to speak English, though.
No, but I would slap him. So, anyways, what a
I'm just not letting you get away with anything.
We are so good at transitions on this show.
Here's what I'm struggling with right now.
Okay.
I'm trying to reconcile something. So, I recently started watching House of Cards.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm enjoying it. It's great.
Right.
But so previous to watching it, I watched that Kevin Spacey documentary that's out. I don't know if you've seen that or watched it, but
I've heard of it. I've not watched
about
it.
all the stuff.
What happened in the Me Too movement with him. Yep.
More or less, yes. But they talked to victims who weren't, none of it's substantiated.
Right.
You know, like there's no evidence, nothing like that. These are people that weren't part of any of the court cases or anything like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've been having I think I figured it out, maybe, or it might be just me rationalizing or whatever. I've never necessarily been a person that can separate art from artist, right? Like,
yep.
Like with Michael Jackson, I can't listen to Michael Jackson's music now.
Right.
R. Kelly's pretty iffy. I might hear his voice. The thing is, if Michael, I used to love Michael Jackson. I turned my son into, he loved Michael Jackson.
No, I get it.
And so but once I saw that documentary, I know those dudes are, from personal experience, I know those guys are telling the truth. So I believe them.
Bill Cosby's another example. I used to love watching Bill Cosby. I cannot, I almost.
Yeah, if the Cosby Show comes on, the Cosby Show still shows on some channels, I think. And it comes on and you feel dirty if you watch it.
Right. Yes.
You know, but anyway, so I've always been able to not been able to separate art from artist. For some reason in this case, I just needed something to watch. And I was like, you know, I used to love Kevin Spacey in movies. I mean, he was a great actor, right?
Yep.
And so they showed him acting like that character in the documentary. So I was like, oh, let me give it a shot. And I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, why is it with him I'm able to do this? I think someone maybe would think it was a racial thing from the outside. Right. I feel like, for me, it's with him, it's like it was adult men that didn't want his advances. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Right.
On some level, maybe in the back of my head, that makes it not bother me as much. I mean, he definitely took advantage of them. It was like guys that were extras that were really hungry to be in the industry, and they were straight, and he'd do shit to like grab their dick or something, and they couldn't say anything,
right?
Because career over, yada yada yada, all that.
Right.
And then also with a TV show, and again, Cosby, I've been able to watch that. I've been able to watch the Cosby Show when it's come on, and I think maybe I mean, it's not quite the same because it's him. The show's named after him, but like I think maybe because it's a TV show, because like if I can't watch this TV show because of what he did, what a piece of shit he is,
right?
Then does that mean everyone else in that cast is a piece of shit? Every other writer is a piece of shit? Like, I'm not just boycotting the show. I'm not just boycotting him. I'm boycotting all of them.
Right.
Right? Do they deserve it?
Nope.
You know what I mean?
It's interesting because I haven't watched the show, but I watch a lot of TikTok, and TikTok has a lot of like clips of shows and movies and stuff like that I just kind of get hooked on. And there for a while, I was getting a lot of Cosby show clips and would laugh or whatever. And then immediately nostalgia. Would be like, I feel guilty for laughing because I know.
Yeah.
You know, but I watched it in the moment. I didn't think about it, but then after I laughed or whatever, I'm like, but to your point, the people that were in that show didn't know that, and probably feel just as shitty now as we do. You know what I mean?
Right.
That maybe they didn't see it, or
100%.
you know, have had good, you know, Felicia Rashad is a good example.
Yeah, she doesn't. She still
probably had a great relationship with him the entire day, right? You know, this entire time. So, 100%.
Except for that time she woke up and didn't understand why her pants weren't on.
And it wasn't Ahmad?
Yeah. Ahmad?
He was a Viking anyways. So.
Ahmad was and then we cuddle up under the covers.
Okay. God, we have the worst transitions on this show, I swear. Okay, we're going to bring on our guest here. I'm really super excited to bring on this guest. He's a good friend of mine. I met him a little over a year ago at a retreat at church. And full transparency, you know, the kid walked in. He's a young kid. He's probably the same age as Caitlin is. Had a bunch of tattoos, clearly had a military style. And I thought, oh, this kid's going to be the jackass. I can just feel it. And grew so close to him over the weekend to the point where he's a Longhorn fan. And I even let him come tailgate with me. So you know how much I really care about somebody when I let him do that. But he's got an interesting story and he's involved with a really good organization. I want to welcome my very good friend, Ethan Beck, to False Starts.
Hook 'em horns, Chris.
You motherfucker. Nope. We're starting over. Starting the whole show over.
Horns down.
That's right. Bill doesn't care. He doesn't give two shits about the Big 12 or anybody else.
Isn't it about to be like fucking Allied Bank conference or something? They're not even gonna be.
Listen, dude, whatever. They want to give us $50 million to name it the Allied Bank. I'd be just fine with it. So that's totally fine with me. It does not bother me.
Yeah, it's getting like you got the fields named something, the stadiums named something, the shit. Our fucking podcast has a studio named something, and none of us are in a studio.
That's right. I know, right?
Three Beard Studios, and we're all in our own houses.
Well,
that's the best studio.
Andrew Downs is paying a lot of good money for us to promote that. So.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, so don't be dissing our sponsors. Ethan, I gave you a brief introduction, but why don't you fill people in a little bit about who you are and your background a little bit with the Army and things like that. So
obviously, my name, as you can see, is Ethan Beck. I am from Avon, Indiana. I joined the Army shortly after graduating high school in 2014 and arrived at my duty station with the 1st Armored Division about a year later in 2015. And that's where I served the majority of my time. I did various temporary duty assignments all over the country. Let's see. Got out of the military on a medical discharge in April of 2018, which is where I ended up in Iowa. little plot twist here. I met my wife through a friend of mine while serving at Fort Bliss. That's why I came to Iowa. Been with her for, gosh, it'll be 10 years next year. Been married about half of that. So, yeah, that's just
Any kids?
no kids. Not yet.
Where you guys at on that? Is that something you want, or you don't care, or like?
That's a little rocky area.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I don't.
Oh no, it's all good. It's we just kind of enjoy our lifestyle right now, so we want to.
That's what I'm saying.
And do all those things, and
that's the reason I ask, because people come at you all the time. I'm assuming you're late 20s, early 30s, right?
Yeah, be 29
and so like
this year.
People come at you and act as if you don't want kids or you don't have kids, especially if you're married.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the fuck's wrong? Why don't you, like, you're having this unsuccessful life somehow? And I'm like, no, fuck that, dude. Like, if you don't want to have kids yet, like, I always told my son he was an accident, and it was like hilarious, right? Like, he thought it was so funny when he was like in 7th grade, and I was like, yeah, don't worry, you're all accidents. I'm like, there's people that have kids on purpose. They're called fucking idiots. Like, hopefully, I'm like, kids are just something that happened to you, and then you take care of them after that. You obviously love them. You do what you're supposed to do, but
right.
But having said that, when people do plan for children and like make sure, there's that saying where like if you wait till you're ready, you'll never have them, that kind of shit.
Right.
Well, I think that's kind of bullshit too. But like,
right.
You wait where you're at financially better and just maturity wise. Like, my son's 22 and I'm 45. So,
right.
I was 23 when I had my kid. I wasn't a grown up yet. My friends who had kids in their 30s are so much better fathers than I was, So I just said, that's something that they'll come at you with, and that will fuck with your mental health a little bit. Like parents that want grandkids, shit like that.
Right. And, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that. Because, I'm, besides my youngest sister, I'm the only one in my family that doesn't have kids.
Oh, right, so now, you're talked about all the time at the Thanksgiving right now, as soon as you leave.
Right now, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
It's going to give us an opportunity to travel if we want to travel. I mean, obviously we have a dog, and a cat, as you can see. The other little assholes floating around here somewhere. But yeah, I mean, there's things that we want to do. So, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So,
there's something to be said about building some memories and building, to Bill's point,
strong foundation together.
A strong foundation and so forth. Sometimes I think, especially in younger couples, they have a baby so early, and then all of a sudden it's not about them anymore. It's about the kid, and they lose sight of building their life together and things like that.
Right. Or they didn't get a chance to find out they didn't really like each other that much before they had a kid.
That very well could be true.
I mean, honestly,
that very well could be true.
Dude, by the time I divorced my son's mom, I couldn't fucking stand the sound of her voice, dude. Like,
right.
To this day, it's nails on a chalkboard. And I have a child with this person. You know what I mean?
Agree.
Like,
I've
said that wrong before. Shit.
I've said that before about Tyler and Caitlin's mom, that I'm hard pressed to say the word I regret it, because I got
you wouldn't have your kids otherwise.
But if I wouldn't have had the kids, I probably wouldn't have stayed with her, because I can think of a lot of time for a very long time after we had the kids, I was there to be their dad. I was not in love with her anymore.
Nothing will ruin the mood of a marriage like obligation.
Yeah.
Like, when you're doing nothing and when everything you do is out of obligation, that's when your life fucking sucks.
Yep.
And I think that's what a lot of marriages become, where you're just obligated all the. I mean, the marriage is the end. I look back on both of my my marriages, and the second one, I am almost positive that was a major part of that ending, was so much obligation where neither one of us wanted to be doing or saying what we were doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of interesting. I've got friends that, guys that I served with that have been married 4 and 5 times that are 29, 30 years old, because it's, I got married because I didn't want to live in the barracks, or I got married because it was extra money, or I got married because I actually love this person, and then they realize after they live together that they hate each other.
Yeah.
Right.
And and then you've got guys like me that have been, with their significant other for almost 10 years, lived half of that almost, 1,500 miles away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
How speaking of that, because my nephew, God rest his soul, Dusty, who actually committed suicide 15 years ago, he actually joined the military after high school and had a very serious girlfriend back here, and he ended up going AWOL and leaving because he was so distraught and missed her so bad. I'm curious, Ethan, how did, as a young man in the military and so on, when you have, whether it's a spouse or a girlfriend or something back home, how hard is that? And how does that pull on those heartstrings? That does it cause some problems for a young man or a young woman, I guess I should say, in the military like that?
Oh, absolutely. So my wife's name is Heather. When we met in 2015, I was hanging out with a good friend of mine, and his girlfriend and my wife are best friends. Unfortunately, he's no longer in the picture. It is what it is. But so we met through the two of them and hit it off immediately. She came down that Thanksgiving, right before Thanksgiving that year, to meet me for the first time. And I mean, I told him, the weekend after they left to come back to Iowa for the holiday weekend, I told him, I was like, I'm going to marry that girl and spend the rest of my life with her. And, she came down to visit multiple times, even with her mom. And, as a young soldier, you're taught that, you don't have feelings. Feelings aren't a real thing. It's a figment of your imagination. If the government wanted you to have feelings, they would have issued them to you. So
basically, once you enlist, you're owned. Your property.
You're taught to shove all that shit into a little bubble and push it as deep down as you can get it, because
you have to dehumanize. You have to be able to dehumanize your enemy.
You're not a human. You're a machine.
Yeah.
So when she would come down to visit, or I would come home on leave and come up here to visit her and then have to go back, it's like ripping a part of your soul out. That one little fragment of good human that you feel like remains is just gone.
Yeah.
So you learn how to teach yourself to get numb, whether that be through alcohol, drugs, both. I've seen it all. I've done it all. So
so do you think that that's probably the hardest part of transitioning back into like normal society, so to speak, the day-to-day 40-hour a week job or whatever?
Absolutely.
Once you're out, like you can't approach everyday life like that.
Mm-mm. No, you have to. That has honestly been my biggest struggle, and I've had 6 jobs in the last 5 years, a lot of them within a month-to-month period of each other. So when I moved to Iowa in 2018, I worked for Permar. I worked for a contractor inside of John Deere. I worked for a rendering manufacturing company. And I bounced around because nobody could understand that I lacked the basic social skills to be a good employee. And then fast forward, I interviewed for a security job at Prairie Meadows, and the guy interviewing me is a vet. Kind of saw the rough around the edges. I was real uncomfortable during the interview, and he took that and he's like, "Look, dude, relax. I'm not like, you got the job basically the moment you walked in here. You're already overqualified."
Yeah.
So, I got the chance to relax, and he's like, what is your biggest weakness? I was like, I don't know how to function like a human being. And he's like, well, we can teach that. I credit a lot of that to my wife also for, teaching me how to function in a normal society.
Do you feel like you don't feel like you're like faking it though, like you're a sociopath? Like,
oh, I do sometimes. 100%.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, but I mean, you don't feel like there's faking it as in like, faking like I know what's going on here, or I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's faking it like I'm pretending to have emotions I don't have. That's what a sociopath would do. You know what I mean?
A little bit of both.
The
Army trains you very, very well to be a sociopath.
Yeah.
There are, and I will be the first to admit, there are certain things that I just don't care about.
Sure.
Well,
like a lot of shit doesn't matter now.
Right. Those little things that normal people don't think about of, you walk into a room or you say you walk into a restaurant. What's the first thing that you think about when you walk into that restaurant?
What do I want to eat?
Exactly. You know what the first thing I think about is? Where's the exit? Who's the biggest threat in the room?
Yeah.
How many cameras are in the building?
I get that on some level. Like it's so funny you bring that up because I make fun of these guys all the time. You ever be around one of those guys that you go to a restaurant and it's one of my favorite fake tough guy things. It's like, oh, you sit, I can't sit with my back to the door. You need to sit with your back to the door. I'm like, shut up. Nobody's coming in here after you fucking idiot. Like,
so yeah,
but there is a legit though, a training though thing. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like for you to walk in there, but again, you right away are like, where are the exits there? Uh-huh. You know what I'm saying? And I've been there just the way I grew up. Mm-hmm. It's almost, you have that little bit of a mentality. Like I remember walking into a bar full of people and these guys walk in and this one dude is a fucking mountain. I mean, and it's wall to wall, and this bar, I was kind of a regular, but it started getting a little rough around, a little rougher. And so I was a little more on alert, and this dude comes walking in and I'm like, all right, some shit goes down. I'm hitting him first and I'm fucking out. Like, it's like whoever looks like the baddest dude in here, I'm fucking getting rid of him. And right. So the dude comes up, like barrels his way up to the bar and happens to nudge me. And I look at him and I'm like, he just kind of looks at me and I go, hey, you look familiar actually. What's your name? And he's like, Vincent. And I'm like, bullshit. You're fucking Ross Verba. It was Ross Verba.
From Iowa.
Yeah. Old Iowa lineman, Packers, old Pro Bowl lineman. Yeah. And so yeah, the rest of that night we fucking hung out and like we're best pals because I started fanboying. I had a Hawkeye shirt on, and so then he ordered 21 shots of Jaeger. And me and him sat there and took all fucking 21 of them.
Oh, that's awful.
It was awesome. I think maybe a few of his buddies, like few people had one, but it was one of my most favorite memories ever. Because I went from thinking I'm going to try to knock out Ross Verba.
Right. Well, so it's kind of funny that you mentioned that because, you know, my friends and I, and like my wife, we frequent a bar over here on the east side of Des Moines, or at least we used to. And, you know, we go in there, we used to go in there every Friday night, every Saturday night, and basically shut the place down. Keep in mind, I don't drink. I'm not a drinker. I've been clean and sober 7 years as of February. But you know, I still go hang out in bars because I don't want to be that 50-year-old schmuck that lets alcohol
We want to be
dictate
social. Yeah. I mean,
right.
I don't know if you ever went to AA meetings or anything, but a lot of
Still do.
AA people, it becomes their addiction now. AA is their addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They see the world through this.
Yes, and that's everything they do is AA related. Everything,
Yep.
all their friends, everything. So
Right.
you feel like you don't fit in there.
Right.
You know, it's like really good, kind of like free therapy, but at the same time, you don't fit.
Exactly. Like, and don't get me wrong, I love the premise of AA. I love
Yeah,
what
it is.
rooms
The
have done
meetings
for
are
so many
great.
people. But like, you've got a younger crowd coming in, and you're abiding by this, 100-year-old
The big
system.
book.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. The big book's got some.
It's really good. I read it cover to cover. It's actually really good.
Yeah.
Right.
Bill W. had some really good stuff in there.
Yeah.
But it's got to update with the times. And I was determined to not be that 20-something-year-old dude that can't go be social with his friends.
Right.
I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So we're hanging out in the bar, and for whatever reason, I've got this face for conflict. Assholes love to try and fight me.
Well,
so, yeah.
If you got red hair and you're on the east side with a bunch of drunk people, it's gonna happen. You're gonna get challenged,
right?
Because I'm guessing you're probably at like, let's see, I'm gonna guess like Jerry's or let me think. Where would you be getting in fights and shit? You wouldn't have been going to are we talking a dive bar? What kind of bar are we talking here?
I'm talking a hole in the wall shit bar.
Like that little Toad place right next to the fairgrounds?
Like, think Cheap Seats.
Oh, Cheap Seats. That's my friends on that place.
I love Cheap Seats. That's where we normally hang out.
Those are my dudes, the Stouts.
Yeah.
Those are my boys.
Do you know Dave Mills then?
I don't know him well. I know who it is, but yeah.
Yeah. So Dave is my boy.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're in there one night and we're all hanging out, and you know how it is on the east side. Dude gets into it with his old lady. Yeah. She's like, "Oh, you're an asshole." He's like, "No, you're an asshole." And then she smacks him. Yeah. Well, he ducks it and clocks me. And all of my friends are sitting here going, "Oh no, this dude's gonna go postal."
Yeah, PTSD style.
Yeah. I mean, she just out of nowhere just rocks me with a right hook. And I took one look at my wife, and she does one of these and puts me back against the wall. And then all of the girls that are with us are like forming a line around me. Yeah. Stone-faced. No recollection. Like, I just got smoked by some random lady.
Yeah.
Like, stone-faced. And they get this gal out of there. Dave comes over and he's like, "Hey, you good, man?" And I'm like, I don't even know what just happened for like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
What is going on here? And he's like, "Hey, free monsters on me the rest of the night. Unlimited waters." I was like,
free monsters. Free anyway.
He's just trying to kill you by getting your heart to explode.
Right. So, but it's little things like that,
it's a good thing you're sober.
Right.
Like, not being sober in that situation might have made that really, really, really bad. Just so happened she hit the right dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially a little, and like, cheap. So there's a lot of little East Side bars like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so cramped. They're so small.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people get in there and people bump into each other and just the most innocent things,
Cheap Seats on a Friday night's got mumble amounts of people because the fire marshal might be watching.
Yeah, I mean it can.
But yeah, it gets tight in there, and I have maintained from day one that I don't hit women. I don't care if you smack me, spit in my face, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna hit you.
I'm with you.
But that's not every dude on the east side.
No. There's a lot of dudes out there that think if you hit me like a man, you're gonna get hit like a man. Blah blah blah. And it's weird because there's two sides to that, especially when you're talking about fucking east side chicks and shit. Because women will use that. Too. Women will use the fact that you're not supposed to hit them against you. They will provoke. They will try their fucking hardest to get you to hit them. They will provoke the shit out of you. And you still got to show restraint because I contend that it's still not a fair fight no matter what.
No, absolutely.
It's like having a little kid piss you off. Now, not that there aren't girls. I mean, there's little dudes and big women. I mean, if the chick outweighs you by 100 pounds, you might have to fight, dude. I mean, I don't know.
Oh yeah.
But like,
I'll be the first to admit that while I was in the Army, we were doing combatives class. I've been choked out by more women and had to tap because I can't breathe than I care to count.
Yeah.
Like, so the fight like a man, get hit like a man in the Army, that's true.
Yeah, right.
If you're 100%. Doing combatives and you're fighting a woman, she's just an enemy combatant. Like, obviously don't go out of your way and like smoke her with a right hook, but like if you're sprawling and you're getting whooped, like you gotta know when to tap out because they're ruthless.
So what do you do about your boner though in that situation?
No comment.
That's a different session.
I've been choked out by more women than I can imagine. Yeah, I think maybe the first one was on accident, but after that.
I don't know. At that point, I think you're just trying to breathe. So I think that's more important. Like you're over here like getting choked out. And you're just like, choose life.
No, because but that's the thing. Like I've been full on. I mean, shit. Both of my ex-wives punched me in the face as hard as they could. Everything they had.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I didn't even raise my hands.
See, I grew up in a house where it was kind of the exact opposite.
Yeah, where like your dad beat up your mom.
Oh, him and my stepmom would go at it constantly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That was
a normal
tough.
day that ended in
how old? Just like from the young, because that's actually dives into why I divorced my son's mom. Mm-hmm. Is I thought he'd never see a healthy relationship because I couldn't stand her, and it was just getting out of hand.
And I saw that kind of stuff from a young age. I moved in with him in like 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Was removed from his house in 2010 because of it. And I haven't really spoken to him since. I mean, off and on here and there over the years, but he has no idea what I'm doing with my life. I have no idea what he's doing with his. I'm not going to wish the guy ill, but I also don't really care to know what's going on. That's, we're trying to, break that cycle of toxicity.
100%. And it's, I got to imagine you kind of doubled down when you went into the Army. Now there's a lot of toxicity you got to break. You didn't, your dad didn't just fuck you fucked yourself too.
Right. Like, like left hook, right hook.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing, I think, to break this cycle though. I can remember as a kid, there were a couple fights that my parents had where I have vivid memories of my dad dragging my mom out of the bedroom, just wailing on her. And there was a famous fight that I remember. I don't remember the physical violence, but I remember waking up the next morning and there was a skillet stuck in the wall because he had threw it so hard that it had stuck and embedded itself into the wall. That's like, and I was probably in, I don't know, first grade when that happened. But as I got older, it didn't happen anymore. And I remember my dad was adamant that I was not
remembering it right.
He never shied away from it. That was not the thing to do, and he purposely made an effort to make sure that the narrative was changed with me.
Right.
And I'm with you, Ethan. It's a hard, fast no for me, regardless of who it is.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, 2 weekends ago, I was at a wedding.
And the groom smacked the shit out of the bride in front of everybody.
No, but my good friend's daughter was getting married, and she is really good friends with Caitlin, and it was a pretty stressful wedding. Let's just put it that way. And the groom and the groom's parents were not very friendly, and there was a lot of arguing about this or that. And at one point, my friend's wife was, just having a conversation with the best man about expectations of what needed to be done, because, they were planning it, they were paying for everything and so forth. And I think she was talking to him and she had pointed at him, and he swung his hand at her and slapped her hand out of his face. And I instantly got up and went over and got in front of him, and we had a confrontation, and it was not going to go well for him. And I just instantly, like, I don't say it to like, hey, it was just a visual reaction of that cannot happen under no circumstances whatsoever. Is that going to happen, or can that happen?
Right. Well, and so, not to make excuses or anything, but, my dad's a dual war vet, Gulf, Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
Yeah.
And then Iraq, in the early 2000s. So
probably a lot of PTSD there.
Absolutely. And,
and probably not a lot of recognition and help about that either. It's 24 years difference now between those times of recognizing, mental health and PTSD and what needs help with and so on. Derek, your friend Bill, who was on last year, is a good, talked a lot about that. You know what I mean?
Derek.
Derek, that it's a different world now, and what is being recognized and so on. Especially with military and people like that, you definitely were told, suck it up.
Right. Feelings aren't a thing. If you have feelings, you're a pussy.
Right. Yep.
Suck that shit up, change your socks, drop a knee, take some Motrin, and drive on.
Well, I got a buddy that's retiring from the Army. He may have just retired, but he's been in rehab basically, and that's one of the things he talks about the most is how toxic it was. Like he's would be away from home all the time.
Right.
And the people he's hanging out with and stuff, like he needed to quit drinking and he couldn't. Like they would not. It was like they wouldn't let him quit drinking.
Mm-mm.
That just simple dumb shit like that. And it's like, dude, how old are we now? This isn't peer pressure. This shouldn't be 12-year-old peer pressure at this point.
Right.
Right. And that's 100% the culture.
Yeah.
In the I got out in 2018. And since
you still wave the flags and stuff. It's not like you're not proud of it. You're not.
Oh, I'm 100% proud of it. But at the same, on that same coin, there are days that I'm disgusted.
Sure.
You've got these great organizations that do a lot of really good things for a lot of kids like me. It helped me grow up. It helped me mature into, who I am now as, that's forever part of who I am. But, you've got guys in your units that are literally murdering each other, or, they're at their wits' end because they can't get help with their family. They don't ever have time at home. They can't get time off. They've got a constant, you've got this operational tempo that they just can't sustain. And they're offing themselves left and right. I've lost 10 friends in the last 5-6 years. One of those was, he was murdered by other soldiers, and those culprits were never found. But that's part of why I got involved with Irreverent Warriors and all that. I'm also involved with another organization, Rec Iowa, with a very similar mission. We just did a hike like that last weekend.
Yeah, I want to.
What exactly is the mission? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. Let's take a break and then let's get back in, and then we can. That's a perfect transition into talking about Irreverent Warriors and the mission for there. So let's grab a real quick break from Revelton Distilling Company. I was down there again this weekend. I had some of their old fashions. Their bourbon is launched. You get a chance to go down to the distillery. That's the only place you can get their bourbon right now. But let's get a word from Revelton Distilling Company. We'll come back with Ethan Beck.
Why take the best corn in the world and make it into fuel when you could make it into whiskey? That's the question that launched Revelton, Iowa's most visible and fastest growing distillery. Owners Rob and Christy Taylor embrace the grain-to-glass philosophy, sourcing ingredients locally and overseeing on-premises production and bottling at their facility in Osceola. One sip and you'll agree that Revelton's handcrafted whiskeys, gins, and vodkas are the best you've ever tasted. And with the launch of their rye whiskey, made with 100% Iowa-grown rye and corn, and their new bourbon coming soon, there's more Revelton to love than ever. Iowa's own Revelton Distillery. ReveltonDistillery.com.
All right, and we're back with our guest, Ethan Beck. Before we get in there, you were getting ready to talk about the two organizations you're a part of, Irreverent Warriors, and then you said Rock. Is that right?
Rock, Iowa.
Rock, Iowa. So, but let's talk about the mission of Irreverent Warriors.
So, funny enough, I'm actually wearing my Irreverent Warriors Indianapolis shirt from
Indianapolis 500. Indianapolis 500.
More or less, yeah. So the mission of Irreverent Warriors is to bring veterans together using humor and camaraderie to improve mental health and prevent veteran suicide.
So how do they do that?
So we put on these events all over the country. These hikes, or we'll do like charity bowling events to raise money for the organization. Kind of things like that, and we get together even outside of these events. I've had, groups of guys that will all go camping and float the river up in Eldora together. Kind of stuff like that. Basically fostering those friendships, and showing you just the wide range of ages of veterans that are in and around your area.
It sounds like, and I've said it before on this show, like, it sounds like you're just trying to give guys something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what I feel like. It's kind of what I feel like the secret to life really is, and I think that's what, when you see the longevity of different people, those guys that are into their 90s, and they've just always kind of found a way to have something to look forward to. They keep growing, and it's weird to think about somebody being in their 90s and how they're a different person than they were in their 80s.
Right. Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that. We've got a hiker here in Des Moines that, oh gosh, I don't even know how old Jerry is. He's got to be like mid to late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And he hikes in his silkies every year and smokes everybody. He's always at the front of the pack.
What are silkies?
So silkies, they originated in the Marine Corps. At least that term did. And they're just PT shorts. They're physical training.
Oh, gotcha. The ones that your balls hang out of when you're jogging.
Yeah. Ranger panties for the Army guys.
Yeah, we had there was Sergeant McCarthy was our ROTC guy in high school. He was also the softball coach.
Mm-hmm.
And he ran every day at school during his planning period or whatever. I don't know, but he always wore those shorts.
Yeah.
And there were, I don't know how many hundreds of stories about seeing his balls.
Yeah, that
Hundreds.
happens. That happens.
I mean
it's just a pack of
hundreds.
silkies.
And now I know what they're called.
Yeah. As we say, the shorter the shorts, the closer to chesty. For all my Marine Corps friends out there, that one's for you, Nick. But
do you guys still have that rivalry?
Oh, 100.
Better or worse? Yeah.
The rivalry is still there, but everybody still reserves that the Air Force is the biggest bunch of goons out there.
So that's what you all agree on, is that they're the fake.
They think they're the best, but they're actually the worst.
Oh. Yeah, because like the fighter pilots are in the Navy, right?
Yeah, and the Coast Guard's not a real branch.
I know that one too. I bet that's hilarious. Like some dude in the Coast Guard walking into a bar full of like Army guys trying to act hard.
Oh man, we had a Coast Guard unit out at Fort Bliss, and they just did not mesh well.
It's like the Aquaman of superheroes, not really useful anywhere other than the water.
It's like the human condition, though. Every group finds a way to bully somebody.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
It's just that. I mean, what are we going to do? Are we going to keep fighting against bullying, or are we going to embrace it on some level? Because, like, honestly, I do feel like the term bullying has been overused now, because they've gone so far with the anti through elementary schools and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They label things bullying that really aren't, I don't think. I feel like there is a line between hazing and bullying. And I don't think hazing is bad. That word has that negative connotation. I don't think hazing's bad.
Well, you got to haze the boots. How else do they get the thick skin?
If you make a bunch of guys stand up in line naked and shove broomsticks in their ass, that's not hazing. That goes beyond, hazing's like heckling.
Right.
To me,
look, your dick's small. Like,
yeah, I mean, just, hey, all you fucking little dick freshmen, whatever.
Right.
In a frat, you know what I mean? You just fuck with them like that for a minute, but it's not this harmful, trauma-inducing situation.
Right. So it's actually kind of funny that you mentioned that, because, that's more often than not, kind of some of the conversations that go along with these hikes. We call it IW for short. It's just easier to say and a lot easier to remember.
Which stands for what?
Irreverent Warriors.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, within these hike elements along the route, it's veterans and veterans only.
Right.
That includes like your active duty the guys that are still active, your National Guard.
You have to be or have been enlisted, basically.
Right. You have to have served in some capacity to be allowed within the hike element. So that's no spouses, no kids, like zero exceptions. Because it's, we're trying to foster that safe
camaraderie.
Yeah, that safe camaraderie spot for the veterans within that hike element to be able to talk with other like-minded individuals about what's going on in their lives.
Yeah. Stuff that they can't, just stuff other people won't understand, but also probably things that you can be more honest about that you can't be honest with your average civilian.
Right. Or even your spouse, for that matter.
Right. Who's still an average civilian.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Right. I've done it. I've talked about things on these hikes that, my wife doesn't even know about. Because, hey, Shipley.
Jesus Christ, I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. I
was just like, oh, hey, there's Shipley's face.
I just want to make it all about me there. It's this tender moment. I wanted to make it all about me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, it gives that safe environment to go ahead and talk about the hard things. I'm not going to tell anybody stories, but, you've got, for examples, you've got guys that have been blown up and been the only survivors to, you know, people that have experienced military sexual trauma. And it's a safe space to talk about stuff like that, the hard nitty gritty shit that other people just aren't going to understand
Sure.
because they don't understand the culture within the military.
I like the words though, because the safe space and military doesn't go together.
Not usually.
So it's kind of nice to turn it on its head a little bit,
Right. And we've taken that stigma of not talking about mental health, and we're just like, yeah, fuck that. Like,
Yeah.
we're dying at astronomical rates.
100%.
Yeah.
And in the cities where these events are going on, we're seeing those numbers decreasing because we're staying involved, we're staying in communication with each other, we're finding like our niche group, and everybody's got their little pods all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got your core family group to reach out to in those times of need.
It's good to see, like, when we started this podcast, I kind of felt like it was the only thing, like nobody else was doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But now I've come to find out over the course of doing this podcast, other people have had the same idea and been going in the same direction in different ways.
Right.
Because like what you're doing, like you mentioned humor and all these things, and that's the mission of this podcast. I say all the time is to have a good time talking about hard things.
Right.
And it sounds like the two shouldn't go together, but they do, because when are you the most honest? When you're having a good time.
Absolutely. When those walls are down.
Exactly.
I will attest and remain that veterans have the single most fucked up, cynical sense of humor.
Oh, just dark humor. Yeah. I mean, it's just like comics. I mean, not just like, but comics in the green room, the shit that we say to each other in there that doesn't go to the general public.
Right.
Because we just have to have it. There has to be a different level to be entertained.
Mm-hmm. So I had a first sergeant for a while that would show. Are you familiar with live leaks?
No, but I feel like it probably has something to do with the meaning of the words.
So a lot of it at the time that I joined, a lot of it was you could find footage of these terror groups and stuff trying to blow up U.S. convoys and failing miserably.
Yeah.
So he'd be like, we're going to do some desensitizing training for your, future enemy. We're going to make them very, very inhuman.
Right.
And we're going to watch this guy try and blow up this convoy that's got these signal jammers, and he's got his little cell phone. He walks down the road after the convoy, and he's sitting here, and you can see him fiddling with the phone. And he's like,
and then just yeah.
And he's sitting in the back of the room cutting up. And all of us brand new privates are like, this dude is messed up in the head.
Right. Yeah.
Well, fast forward a couple years down the road, that's the kind of shit you find funny.
Right. 100%.
This dude sucks at what he's trying to do.
Yeah. Well, by the way, I mean, I get why it sounds twisted, but you're laughing at the guy who was trying to kill you, killing himself.
Right.
I mean, it's not that far-fetched. Yeah. I mean, some of that laughter is laughter of relief, I have got to imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Because, you're sitting here this whole time and you're waiting for the boom. You're waiting for the boom.
Yeah.
For the boom.
So you're waiting to watch your guys get blown up.
Right. Well, and, they'll have live feeds of this shit.
Mm-hmm.
And this, you've got this high-ranking non-commissioned officer that's sitting here like, you're going to watch this until something happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the reality that you're living in now. This is your possibility.
Right.
And, you go through all of these, counter IED courses for how to spot, how to call up You know, your reports of IEDs in the road, what to do while you wait for EOD to come and, you know, dispatch this explosive and whatnot. And, you know, you become so numb to a certain culture and way of doing things. And, you know, again, fast forward to getting out of the military, that's not a normal thing. So that even further isolates you from the rest of your peers on the day to day. You know, I coming out of the Army, and moving to Iowa, I knew nobody. I knew my wife and her mom, and that was it.
So now you're isolated.
Right.
On top of it all. Yeah.
And I'm bouncing around from job to job. You know, fast forward, summer hits, we move into our first apartment together. And you know, I found the event on Facebook for the Des Moines hike that year. I think it was actually 2019 because it was right before COVID. You know, I got on Facebook and somebody that I knew or had been acquainted with in one of the Iowa veterans groups had shared, you know, an event link for this hike. And I was like, yeah, okay, it seems kind of cool. You know, it's other veterans. Maybe I'll make a friend here or there. You know, no big deal. Well, day before comes, and I told my wife, I was like, I'm not gonna go tomorrow. It's weird.
Didn't feel like it. Yeah.
Yeah. She's
like it's almost like you were going to buy friends and you feel like you're above that or something.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, she's like, no, you know, why don't you want to go? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I just want to sit at the house. And she's like, that's not a good enough reason. You're going to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I go and, you know, I didn't talk to anybody the entirety of the hike. So, you know, I'm at the lowest of lows. I feel like I'm a piece of shit human being. And then this group of guys hollers at me as I'm going back to my car. And they're like, hey, man, come here. And, you know, my buddy James is one of these guys. You know, you've got James, Rod, Chuck, JD, you know, all these guys.
Oh, yeah, James, Rod, and Chuck. Yeah, I know those guys.
If they're watching, they'll know. You know, I met my buddy Nick at one of these hikes. I think the following year, or maybe even that year, even. You know, and you know,
they could tell you were there,
yeah,
for the right reason, but didn't know what to even do. But you
right,
were there,
you know, I don't know how to interact with people. You know,
yeah, they needed to push you. They probably saw themselves.
Yeah,
at a certain time moment.
So James is like, take out your phone, and he passes my phone around, and all these guys put their phone numbers in my phone. You know, every one of them's like, text me so I know you got the right number. So I did that, and then I went home. And I was like, yeah, you know, that was kind of cool. I probably won't do that again, though. And every weekend for 2 years, James reached out. Hey, what's going on? Hey, what are you doing? You want to hang out? Nah, I always had a reason. Well, one weekend I get a text message, and he's like, hey, fucker, like, what are you doing this weekend? And I was like, nothing. Why? He's like, you're not working? And I was like, no. He's like, we're going to go to lunch. Bring your wife. And I was like, okay. He's like, yeah. He's like, we want to meet her. Like, you're being a bum. We're going to go hang out, have lunch. We're going to talk. We're going to be, you know, we're going to be friends. We've been friends ever since, you know, and I will maintain that he is probably one of my better friends. You know, we're all really good friends.
Sure.
But I see him the most out of everybody.
Right.
He actually lives down in Norwalk, not too far from Chris. You know, because Norwalk's a small town. Everybody lives basically next to each other.
Right.
But yeah, you know, and it's little things like that, you know. I didn't realize at the time that
you needed a push.
Yeah, you know,
yes, you needed a little
that's one of those things that saved my bacon.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, I mean, you get to where you just, like I said, they probably, I imagine they just saw you walking off by yourself, so noticed that you didn't say a word the whole time, but you were there because you needed to be,
right.
for one reason or another. There was some kind of pull, and
Yeah.
I think it's just, it's similar to what someone would have done at an AA meeting, that first meeting you ever went to. Hey, come here, and you start giving your phone numbers, and they start reaching out. And a lot of that has to do with themselves. That helps keep them accountable,
right?
Because now someone is looking to them for guidance in some way, shape, or form. So that actually, in a way, helps them just as much as whoever they're helping. And it's a nice cycle. And like I said, I've said it about AA a bunch. It really is. If you can't afford therapy and you're struggling with any addiction at all, I would highly recommend going to some meetings and stuff, because you are gonna hear some things that you haven't heard before, that you need to hear. You're also gonna see the people that are there because they need a paper signed afterwards and they don't want to be there at all, and they're just regurgitating bullshit. But you can kind of tell those people apart pretty quick. It's just, it's a tough. You also feel like if you're not sober as a jaybird, you shouldn't really go. Like,
well, so I do all of these veterans hikes with these various veterans organizations because, I'm a suicide survivor. I've been at the lowest of the low. I've been to the low of, putting a gun in my mouth and trying to pull the trigger,
When you say suicide survivor, like, you actually attempted and didn't succeed?
I failed.
Okay. And did you fail half-ass on purpose, like cry for help style, or did you get lucky?
Oh, no, I got lucky.
Yeah.
I 100% got lucky. There is absolutely no reason that gun shouldn't have gone off.
So you pulled the trigger and it just clicked.
And
did it jam? It was obviously.
Yeah.
What happened?
It was almost like a double feed situation. So I'm sitting out in the field, and I've got my rifle, and you've got your collapsible stock. So this thing is like, less than 3 feet long at this point. I've got it collapsed as far down as it'll go. And, I've got a round that I pocketed, and I slap that sucker in there, pull the charging handle, load it up, pop it, pull that trigger, and it just clicks.
So
when I loaded that round, it didn't seat properly, so it shoved the actual bullet itself down into the casing. So when it was, there was nothing.
Just a freak occurrence that it didn't go off.
It struck that primer, and the primer never ignited.
So
you want to talk about shit in your pants?
Yeah, like, people talk about, like, people that survived, like the Golden Gate Bridge, for example, is like one of the number one suicide destinations. Talk about fucking sick. I watched a whole documentary that was just cameras on that bridge for a year, and then they showed people jumping, and they talked to their families, and there was one person that survived, one or two, and there's been other people who survived suicide attempts where they said they basically, like, let's say they jumped. As soon as they jumped, they regretted it. As soon as they did whatever, they changed their mind, basically. Which could have been a reason for their survival in a way, like the will to live came back or in that process. So, like, for you, what was your headspace like right before you pulled the trigger, and then how did it change did it change immediately after? Like, was it a thing where the gun was just fucked at that point? It wasn't like you could pop another round in and fix it?
Oh no, I definitely could have.
You could have. Okay. So
Oh,
your
yeah,
mind
100%.
your mind changed then in that moment.
Yeah. So, and it's not like one of those, oh, I just had an epiphany moments.
Yeah, I saw God or something. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was I pulled that trigger and it clicked. And I sat there for like a split second and I was like, what the fuck did I just do?
Yeah.
Like
all of a sudden you couldn't believe you actually did it.
Yeah, no, couldn't breathe, like threw my gun out of the truck. What the fuck did I just do? And I'm not even shitting you. I sat there in the fetal position and I just shook. I shook. And
it's pure anxiety, pure
broad
fear.
Fucking daylight. There's people walking around.
Yeah. And you didn't give a fuck because you were so low.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't even see them. You didn't even notice them.
But I
bet you did though right then after you threw the gun out. I bet you started noticing them.
But I was the smiley guy.
Yeah.
I had jokes.
Yeah.
I had great jokes.
100%.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a split second. I was like, what the fuck did I just do? You know, keep in mind, I was still drinking at the time. I was abusing medications that I shouldn't have been abusing because I had them and I could get more of them if I wanted them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I've been there. I know what that low is like. So
is sobriety probably the biggest part of your life now that's kept you on track?
Part of it, yeah. And I can't even really credit myself with my own sobriety for where it started. Mm-hmm. I didn't initially get sober for me. I got sober for my wife.
Yeah.
At the time, she was my girlfriend.
Well, but an ultimatum can be your rock bottom. It's not necessarily that you're really getting sober for her, because if that were the case right now, you'd be resentful.
Right. And
you know what I mean? So you were doing it for yourself. You just didn't know it at the time.
So I got the ultimatum and I drank and I used for another 3 months. And then on 2/24 of 17, I was like, I'm fucking done. I've had enough.
Just tired.
I've got that tattooed on my wrist.
The date.
So I never forget.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know that mentality. I've talked about it on here. I never attempted suicide by any means, but I mean, to this day, sometimes it just pops in your head, like, because it'd just be easy to just give up,
Mm-hmm.
like you're stressed out about something and it's like, man, I just wish I didn't have to deal with this right now.
Yeah.
And you can see how fast that can spiral, how much that can just, if you continue in that thought process. So I'm curious.
Well,
I'm curious. So you're in your truck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where are you specifically? Like,
I'm sitting behind some fucking sand berm on perimeter security.
Oh, so you were like in uniform?
Yeah.
Oh shit! So you were like what?
I was in the field. I was in a training.
Okay, gotcha. Exercise. Like if you were at Fort Bragg or some shit or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Wow. So did anyone come upon you, or did you just, after you got done shaking and shit, you just kind of picked yourself up and drove back to the barracks or whatever?
No, I got my shit together because I had probably like another 40 minutes left on my guard watch, and I got my shit together.
Finished.
My relief comes out, and I went back and I slept.
Man.
And then we did convoys all night long. We did convoy driving with your night vision all night long. And I did like nothing ever happened.
And so this was a training exercise. They were preparing you for some shit. So, were you said you were drinking then using a lot. Were you hungover at that time?
Oh, 100%. I was going through withdrawals.
Some kind of withdrawals.
Yeah.
So that contributed to the mentality, I'm sure. That's one thing I find with my anxiety. If I'm hungover, my anxiety is higher.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Not every time, but I would say the majority of when I just feel uneasy, it's when I'm hungover, or I've been drinking, not necessarily all the way hungover, but had a decent night of drinking,
Yeah. Well, and that I'd be a liar if I told you that wasn't the first time I'd tried something like that either.
Okay.
I'd been through that in high school. Why in God's name they let me join the fucking army, I have no idea.
So this was part of a public record that you did this in high school? I mean, or did you tell them when you were joining?
I mean,
no, I'm not. I know you laugh because like they give a shit, but I'm just saying,
right.
like,
I had talked about it with my recruiter, and he's like, "No, you didn't."
Oh, gotcha. See,
like,
those motherfuckers, dude. I'm glad you said that because that was one of the final straws in my last marriage. One of the things that happens, I got in a huge fight with my stepson. My stepson and my son were both graduating the same year, and the recruiter was trying to get my stepson to join the National Guard right here in Iowa, reserves, whatever. And he's telling them that they don't deploy.
Oh, bullshit.
And I'm like, that's fucking bullshit. Yeah. So he comes home and I'm like, that's bullshit. They do too. And he's like, no, he said, I go, I want to know, did he tell you
National Guard
this?
is one of the most deployed units.
100%. I know. That's what I was trying to tell him. And I go, so you can see this is how I was acting then. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. And so I was like, did he tell you that? I wanted to know if he said this to you for real, or are you just trying to argue with me to be a teenage dickhead right now? And it was, I'm not going to, he started dismissing me and all that, whatever. But anyway, the point is I have a problem with that. Like the recruiter is making a commission more or less. And so he's fucking scooting your ass in there. Like it's no different than a fucking crooked mortgage broker inflating appraisals. It's the same kind of shit.
Right.
Like they're selling you something that isn't really there.
Right.
Well, and you put a kid that's got these issues anyway in these high stress environments, and you don't teach them the correct coping skills. Like what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, you could have been at that age. A hard sell worked so easily on you. Just fucking hammering shit to you, like
they don't want you to learn coping skills because then you're thinking for yourself,
and
see, then you might question whether or not I should is dead, right?
Yeah,
or
a soldier that thinks on the battlefield is dead,
or not an efficient killing machine that they want.
Yeah, and see that's why it's hard to integrate back into society. First of all, because you don't come out of the military and I don't know any of this. I'm talking out of my ass, but I'm just saying, like, you don't come out of the military being a person who doesn't respect authority. That's like the number one thing you learn is to respect authority.
Right.
I think that the problem is when you get into the general world, the people who are in authority over you don't deserve to be in your mind because of what you've been through.
Right.
So you can't show any respect to these authority figures, which is why you can't hold a job until you find the right one.
Right.
And that's why I could have never joined the military. And I knew my dad was so smart. He was like, you do not like to be told what to do. You are not going to make it if you, because once you go, you're trapped. You got to get a discharge somehow. So like, it's not like you can show up at basic training and be like, you know what? Not for me.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I know guys that tried that and they made them go all the way through the cycle and then sent their ass home on graduation day with no benefits, no certificate, nothing.
Yeah.
Like their parents showed up and everything, and they're like, "Sorry, your kid's not graduating today because they're a piece of shit."
Yeah, see, that's fucked up.
Yeah, that happens. That happens a lot more than you think too.
I don't. Well, that's why fucking drill sergeants get murdered and shit. Like that. I mean, Full Metal Jacket. I'm sure that's not. I'm sure that shit happened multiple times.
I watched that show. You know, to your point, Bill. I watched that movie with my dad, and about halfway through that opening sequence of that show, he turned around and looked at me. He goes, "You know what?" He's like, "There's no way. There's a reason why they don't want anybody over 25, 26 to join the military." Because after about 5 minutes of that, I'd tell that guy to go get fucked.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, but when you can think for yourself, they don't want people like that. They don't want people like that. So,
well, I've always said that the military, the mentality of our military, the way it's taught, and I don't just think it's our military. I think it's just military in general, just defense, however you want to put it. To me, it's the same exact thing as Bloods and Crips, except with more money.
Yeah.
It's like it's Bloods and Crips with tanks. Yeah, 100%. And if you're wearing the opposite colors, we're gonna kill you for being on our block. And if you kill one of ours, we're gonna kill one of yours.
Well,
and we're not gonna leave our guy behind.
500 of yours.
100%. We're gonna make it worse so that you don't think twice about killing our guys again. But then they just do the same thing. I mean,
well, and we haven't even gotten into the
strategy. It was a
say what?
Hearts and Minds wasn't a strategy. It was a game plan for killing.
Yeah.
And we haven't even touched on the socioeconomic aspect of that they. I don't.
Yeah, we get some poor kids.
Right. Well, I'm reluctant to use the word target, but you don't see those recruiters spending time in Valley High School and Waukee very often.
Well, because kids that are going to have it better have no desire.
Right.
Yeah. They've already got money. They can already go to college. They don't need to put themselves through this shit to get a college education. But the poor kids don't have a choice.
Right.
Unless they want to be up to their ears in debt when they graduate.
In the wise words of System of a Down, why do they always send the poor?
Yeah, 100%. I ain't no fortunate son. That fucking goes back to Vietnam.
Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean,
Which reminds me of one of my favorite jokes I ever heard. How many Vietnam vets does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Jesus Christ.
You don't know, man. You weren't there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I love that joke. It's one of my most favorite I ever heard.
Hey, Christina. But yeah, I mean, they wonder why the mental health stigma is as bad as it is.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, that's you cannot show weakness. You're not allowed. And there's a difference, I think, and that's part of where men fail. I think that we mix the two words vulnerability and weakness together. We don't in a sense understand the difference.
Yeah
Because vulnerability is actually something that will get you a long ways.
It's a true strength.
That if you're not afraid to be vulnerable, it really is a true strength. And vulnerability makes you open. It makes you open to advice. It makes you open to just kind of the world around you and the reactions to whatever's going on. Where weakness is something that fails you. The weakness is when you're weak about things, you're failing. Like there's nothing positive that even comes from the word weak. Some words have double meanings and you can spin them however you want. The word weak does not have a positive definition in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. So once you conflate those two words, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have to we need to preach to men, our sons as we're raising them, like we need to preach the difference between vulnerability and weakness.
Right.
Yep.
Like it's okay to be vulnerable. And I I credit my wife with, teaching me that it's okay to let those walls down, even as
it's not only
man,
okay, it's necessary.
Right. Because if
I don't think anyone
that shit out, it's gonna eat you alive.
Yeah. I don't think anybody can. I mean, if the goal is happiness, I really don't think anyone can truly live a happy life without being vulnerable in any way.
Right.
Like you see those.
No, because you're too guarded.
100%.
You're too guarded and you're too jaded, and you don't want to open yourself up even to any kind of new feelings.
100%. And then and that's how you would see like men. You look at the, when we were growing up, the men that you looked up to, and they were hard asses, and they, you weren't going to see any emotion out of them. You weren't, there was going to be no vulnerability, so to speak. And I was really lucky because my stepdad, I have both of my dads were at my house yesterday for Father's Day. Like, I'm very lucky. I have two great dads where a lot of people didn't even get one. But they were opposites in a lot of ways. And one of them was my biological dad never showed a lot of emotion. My stepdad will cry at the drop of a fucking dime. So I'm emotional like him. That made it. I grew up thinking it was okay for a man to be emotional, but I also got the duality. I had my other dad, and there was nothing wrong with him either. He just wasn't a hugely emotional. I mean, he in no way, shape, or form was he abusive, anything. I worship my dad. So like, it wasn't going to be, I saw him cry once when, we were getting ready for my grandma to just kind of say, pull the plug with my grandma. Yeah. That's the only time in my life I've seen my stepdad cry at a fucking commercial. Like,
well, I'm adopted.
That damn Sarah McLaughlin.
Yeah.
So I'm adopted. I've got an adopted set of parents that I spent from my freshman year to my senior year with.
Gotcha.
I'm in contact with them regularly. They get along with my birth mom phenomenally. But yeah, my dad, Steve, is, he's an emotional human being. So I came from like having this very callous, like father figure to having him, and I'll never forget sitting in their house, and he asked me what was wrong, and I just unloaded. I'm a 14-year-old kid that's seen a lifetime's worth of trauma, and like I will never forget sitting there and watching his eyes well up, and then that hug that I got. Like,
it was life-changing.
Yeah.
I guarantee that moment was life-changing.
Oh yeah, I'm a grown man. And sometimes all I want is one of those hugs. Like to walk up to him sitting at his computer, set my head down on his shoulder, and him just like rub my head like I'm a 14-year-old kid again.
Yeah.
I lost my dad 13 years ago, and posted on Facebook yesterday how much I missed him and how much I'd give anything for another hug. So dad hugs are the absolute best.
Yeah,
they are.
Yeah. Well, I think we're hitting the mark here. Ethan, I can't thank you so much for coming on and joining us and telling your story. There's a way to donate to the Irrelevant Warriors. If you go to their website, just Google Irrelevant Warriors. There's a donate button there. We encourage you guys to go and donate. That's one of the big things here at Three Beards Media that we really encourage is giving back and things like that. So, Ethan, thank you so much for hopping on.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Great conversation.
Billy, you have a great couple weeks. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Check out all the
full charge in 2 weeks.
What's that?
I said full charge. My buddy Matt Fulcheron is going to be our guest in 2 weeks.
Oh man,
Full charge.
All right. That sounds
All
great.
right.
All right. With that, guys, we thank you guys again for listening to another Three Beards Media podcast brought to you by the AKC Studio, Andrew Downs, and Revelton Distilling Company. Check out all our other content. We just had a really great interview with Bill Fennelly, Coach Bill Fennelly on the Side of the Storm. The Hawks Eye View guys, I think, they're ramping up about as well as the Iowa offense, which means they really haven't done anything much. But the excitement for what's coming is super great. That was a terrible joke. That's why I'm not.
No, it's your typical fucking Iowa State fan stupid shit where you guys insult the team that whooped your ass. Like, if our offense was so bad, how the fuck did we beat you? Do you suck that bad? Just go ahead and say that. God damn it. Fucking sick of that shit. We won the game. Yeah, but your offense sucks. Yeah, but shut up. You got beat. Just shut up. We beat you with only defense. We only had defense and beat you. Shut up.
It's just my favorite part of the show. Get Bill all riled up. Okay.
All right.
Listen here. Uncle Fester's going to blow a light bulb.
That's right. Everybody have a great night. Thanks
All
for
right,
listening.
Joe. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Have a good one.